right, and welcome to Pop Culture POV. That's point of view. We are going to talk about some pop culture stuff, and we had to do episode number 1 with Tone Viera, Meredith Viera's nephew. I'm kidding, but does anyone ever say that to you because you have the same name as her?
You will be shocked. You are the first person to say that, but I think it all the time, and I wait for people to kind of be like Meredith Viera, but no one ever says it. You are the first.
Well, yeah, I mean, for one, you are in the world of hosting and SiriusXM radio and of course comedy. So I know that a lot of your aspirations have to do with TV. And if we're going to talk about TV, Meredith Vieira is one of the big dogs. So you are not related to Meredith Viera, but you are Tone Viera, and you are working at SiriusXM. You hit the comedy circuit all the time when that was available, and you're going to do our first pop culture POV. Tone, I want you to tell me, how do you think the comedians have adjusted in the world of COVID? Typically, I don't talk about COVID, but there's something about comics and the way they have to sort of almost, it's like in their DNA to hit the stage. So if you can't hit the stage, what do? How do you think some of the comics are surviving and regrouping?
Man, let me tell you, it's a tough time for the comedians out there, especially the ones in the major cities like New York and LA, because they're so accustomed to performing regularly. See, there's like levels, there's like a hierarchy to being a comedian. There's like the guys who are on the come up, there's guys who are like regulars at clubs, there's guys who are touring, and there's dudes who are like major headliners. So it's like the realm that I dealt with, I was kind of like at the lower part of the totem pole, the guys who are just like hungry, trying to get as much stage time as possible. Now that's not possible for anybody. So people are resorting to doing like rooftop shows, and those, they don't have that many people. They'll be performing for like 10 people, and they consider that a full house because no one's trying to go out.
Right.
People are doing like private shows, like in living rooms. Of course, COVID's safe, but it's like people are doing what they gotta do.
It's clearly not the same. Like I could speak to that as having nearly 20 years doing regular radio, traditional radio, the term, and running a switchboard, being live on the air versus doing a podcast. It's not the same. So I could understand that dilemma. Like, dang, you guys want to hit the stage. Now, some of the stages you hit were, of course, I've seen you perform at Caroline's, which is kind of cool. But which comics do you think are still managing to keep their name out there, create great content, but they can't go hit the stage? Like, I know that the History Hyenas are kind of funny. Chris Stefano and Giannis Papas, they're pretty funny. Andrew Schultz seemed to have a really big year. Who do you see out there that's doing a great job in this new world?
Man, those guys you touched on, they were doing the content thing before the pandemic even happened. So they now had the liberty to focus more time on it, which is great because they've been able to step up their production values. They've been able to just write stronger material because they didn't have to worry about going out in the evening to perform. And, these guys were booked all the time. These guys were like the regulars in the New York City scene. Somebody who, on a bigger scale, got to do a lot of stuff was Kevin Hart. He recorded like a special in his house, released it out on Netflix. Chappelle did something in his like backyard in Ohio, where he had like an invite only thing. Yeah, it's like every comedian was doing something already in the digital realm. So this gave them the opportunity to like reassess what they were doing and be able to step it up big time. I tip my hat to anyone who's out there putting content because it's not easy. It's not easy. Some guys, they're just
but not all content is created equal. Like, I think there's a lot of thirsty people out there, Tone. We got to talk about it.
There is. And, sometimes people just keep putting stuff out there until something hits. They have that quantity over quality mentality. And I still tip my hat to them because as a person who is like a trained, multimedia creator, I don't even create as much content as I should. So it's like when I see somebody just go out there and film something on their iPhone and I listen to the audio quality, I'm like, oh, that could have been done better. I still tip my hat to them because I'm like, that's what I should be doing, but I don't.
Well, you do good. I mean, you've worked with Covino and Rich, which are young legends in the making over at SiriusXM. You're doing SiriusXM at Shade 45 now, producing a show, and you hit the comedy circuit. So yeah, you're very multimedia. I just want to know, of the comics, like which ones still rose to the occasion in a quarantine situation. Let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you real quick. So I love Whitney Cummings, right? And I loved her specials. Like, to me, she really worked in the specials. And I assume she worked very well live as well, too, because I remember seeing the Comedy Store documentary on Showtime. So she seems to be so good in that space. She seems to be so good, creating a show. Obviously, Two Broke Girls. I think she did some stuff with Roseanne until that got crazy.
Yeah.
And she's great. But I really feel like, and this is not a diss because I would love to interview Whitney Cummings at one point, but I feel like COVID kind of ruined her energy. And she's still really cool, but Tone, I used to tell you all the time, oh my God, I love Whitney Cummings. Oh my God, I love Whitney Cummings. Oh my God, I love her. And now I'm like, ooh, you can see her creative process is stifled. And that's not a bad thing because honestly, all of our creative processes are stifled. But like Whitney Cummings, I'm not going to say she fell off because she's the queen. But as a critical consumer, like I feel like she struggles a little bit in her podcast. It's called Good For You. And I feel like it started off so strong, but you could tell the fatigue, which to your point earlier, I guess we all go through fatigue because this stuff it's not easy. You were one of the people who actually helped me. You're like, Ronnie, content is king. Why aren't you putting your stuff out there? And I'm like, oh shit. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think you're great. You naturally can just go off the cuff. You have a lot of great ideas. You understand what it's like to be in front of the screen and behind the scenes. So I was like, why not? You're going to make the most monstrous content out there. Like, I feel like nobody could hold a candle to you in that lane.
Yeah, and I'm sexy too, so we got to talk about the elephant in the room. I mean,
you didn't let me finish. I was going to say that too. Answer the original question. You kind of took the answer from me. Andrew Schulz is one of the people I follow. If I would have followed Whitney Cummings, I probably would be able to agree with you to the extent that you were saying. But since I don't follow her, I don't know much about her. But Andrew Schulz killed it. He even got to the point we had to hire writers because he was doing that Instagram TV show where he was just talking about whatever was happening in the country and people were tuned in, and he was getting millions of views, and then eventually led him to a Netflix show.
Do you find it crazy that he literally shit on Netflix, talk about Netflix is done, Netflix is garbage, and then within that year realm, Netflix did pick up, the little series you're talking about? Like, to me, that is just like, while I'm being honest with you, I don't like a lot of social media. You know that. You, as a friend of mine, have been very encouraging of like, Ronnie, content is king, content is king, content is king. And I'm like, I want to act like I've been there before. I want to act like I'm too cool for the room. I'm being honest about it, right? I'm that bitch, right? All that shit, okay? So for me, I was like, no, I can't. So you encouraged me. But I do want you to give me your opinion on what you think of that damn dynamic of Andrew Schulz, one who does this very well, who literally went on the Joe Rogan show, huge eyeballs, huge fan base, huge reach, and said, Netflix ain't nothing. And in that same year, Netflix said, we're going to throw some money at you. How the heck did he acquire that? I'm not saying that's my lane. I'm not saying that's your lane, but I want you to tell me how you think he got to that space. How did that work in his advantage?
In my opinion, Andrew Schulz did what he had to do, and he became one of the top comedians in the country. Netflix every year has to give a certain number of comedians a special. It was without a doubt that they were going to go with him eventually. It was his turn.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, it's just as simple as that. It's like they weren't going to give it to anyone else. He was the one producing the heaviest results. He has a strong fan base now.
That's true.
Because of all the 1-minute clips that he recorded over the past year. Every week he had a 1-minute clip out there of him roasting somebody in the crowd. His videos were going viral. You can't
crowd work videos for any comedian, they're real special. Watching crowd work is really cool, and he didn't narrow that in. Like, he made sure that he always had clips of crowd work, even more so than the stuff that was pre set up, like his bits or whatever, which was really cool. So who else would be like, if you do a lot of broadcasting, Tone, if you could do an interview with one comedian because you wanted to like pick their brain, you wanted to learn from them, or you just wanted to be in their presence, who is your icon? Is it Dave Chappelle?
I mean, he's definitely in my top 5. I don't have like a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but
come on, we got to do it like it's a hip hop list, man. Kidding.
Those hip hop lists are so subjective. Funkmaster Flex, New York City DJ, just released the top 50, and people were having arguments about it. There's like this Clubhouse app. There was like literally hundreds of people in the room arguing about his list.
Yeah, that does make sense. I get it. Well, but who do you like though? Is Dave Chappelle's clearly somebody who kind of speaks to you, right? I mean, his comedy was something that inspired you a little bit?
Yeah, I grew up watching that Half Baked, all his comedy specials. I modeled a lot of my stuff after him. In a way, I kind of call myself an unofficial third generation Chappelle because the person that he mentored ended up mentoring me into comedy. So
Oh, well,
I
what you
feel like
mean? Who was that?
so when the Chappelle show, when it was on the air on Comedy Central, he had a DJ that introduced the show every day, every episode, sorry, and
Hmm.
it was Cypher Sounds, and Cypher Sounds started a program where he taught comedy to people. So
Right.
I was in that program. So through Cypher Sounds, I got into comedy. So I tell people unofficially I'm third generation Chappelle.
Yeah, let that be on a bio. They're gonna book you more. But no, let's stop down for a moment because Cypher Sounds is very, very funny. I feel like I have a soft spot for him just because I'm such a radio fanatic. Like for you, like you have different things that you do, like you said, multimedia. But for me, I always go hard for broadcasts, like radio and stuff of that nature. So for us as a viewer to see him go from radio so seamlessly to comedy and be just out of control funny, like that's awesome. What do you think he's working on, or why do you think he is so successful with what he's been doing in comedy?
The man doesn't stop working. He's always got like projects he's working on. Like the man really stays booked. He has assistants that work for him. I know he doesn't look like that type, but he has like literally 2 or 3 assistants that help him because he got the True TV show that he does. He got his personal digital that he creates, and he got the stand up going on. So he's always running around the city.
Yeah. Well, why did you get into comedy though? Let's be real about that. Comedians seem like such a hard job. Why did you get into it?
Ronnie, I gotta be honest with you. I saw the movie The Nutty Professor. That scene where Chappelle went one-on-one with Eddie Murphy in the comedy club.
Hmm.
That's when I knew. I just didn't know how to get into it when I was a kid. I was a little 10-year-old kid when I saw that movie. I was like,
You were
I want
10
to do
years
that.
old. God, I'm that much older than you. Oh my God, I was like a young, spry 17-year-old, getting it in.
Yeah, man. I saw that scene and I said, I would love to do that. Like tell
Hmm.
jokes to people. And uh, for years I always just was funny, but I
Okay.
never did anything about it. Later on, when I got involved with Cypher Sounds, that's when I realized I'm now that I have enough people in the industry, I can get into stand-up. So I started going to open mics, started refining myself, and boom, I find myself here 6 years later, and I'm still going strong despite the pandemic.
I respect the comedy career, I do, but I always feel like I'd have a heroin addiction if I tried to do comedy. Radio was hard enough. I did dabble in improv for a little bit. I took a class at Groundlings, 3 classes at Improv Olympic when it was around. So I definitely have like a soft spot for comedy. But man, watching the Comedy Store documentary on Showtime, I think it was a 5 or 6 part series. Like the amount of respect I have for just that journey, and it's a crazy journey. They talked about Sam Kinison. They talked about even Freddie Prinze, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s father, the younger legend, and obviously that was tragic. But yeah, it's just a really, really hard job. So I give anyone who does stand up a lot of respect. When you're up there and you're bombing, what the heck does that feel like?
I love to bomb because
Well,
it's
good, because you do it all the damn time.
nah, the thing is, I've never bombed to the point where I've gotten like tomatoes thrown at me or booed, but there's been times I tell a joke and it doesn't hit as strongly as I expect it to. But the thing is, I see it almost as a sport. I almost see it as like, how can I dig myself out of this hole? And it becomes fun to me. I
Okay.
almost like that. And there's like a little technique where they're like, if something doesn't work, figure out how to make it work, and that's how you become a stronger comedian. Maybe dive into some crowd work,
Right.
or
Okay.
you use that moment to just address the fact that it didn't work. Well, that didn't work, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna go to the back and drink some bleach now, but I'll be right back if I'm alive.
Yeah, you got
But
to. They talked about that in the documentary. You got to just sit in that silence a little. Another comedy series I wanted to watch. I never got around to watching it, but I think it was on Showtime also, and it was called "I'm Dying Up Here," which really was the epitome of bombing, up on stage. So I would like to watch that too. So like I said, because I was in radio for so many years, and you still are, you're sort of not expected to make people laugh, but there is a part of your job that you do bring out humor in a lot of people. So I have such a respect in that, because anytime that I would hit a joke on air, like that does feel really good. So I could understand why you want to come back on stage over and over again, because when it does click, it feels good. The difference I think in radio versus stand-up is, in radio, I have the times I've had really good humorous moments, I have 2, 3, 4 people to banter off of, and then it's live radio, and it's you know, you set up a joke here, you set up a joke here, then boom, Ronnie pays it off, or vice versa. Doing it alone seems really challenging. So I give you a lot of respect. We talked a bit about like some of the comics who have done well within the pandemic. I do want to ask you, did you ever think that Joe Rogan was going to be the biggest thing in podcasting? At least for right now, he is. Did you ever see that coming? Were you a fan of his from Fear Factor? Did you ever see him do live stand-up?
Man, I didn't even think podcasting was going to be as big as it has become.
Right, I know. I started one damn in 2007. I would, if it would have continued on. There was no fan base back then. Like there was no one had an urge to do it. But me and some friends, we were from radio. We tried it, and who would have? I remember we used to talk about a podcast, and people would be like, what is that? A and B, how you gonna get people to stop their lives to go listen? And now I'm like, damn, that's all people do. Pandemic or not, like people love podcasts. But I just never saw Joe Rogan as being the guy. And I was talking to a friend recently, and I was like, oh, who do you like more in the broadcast world? Do you like Howard Stern more, who to me is a king, or Joe Rogan? And it's surprisingly that some of the younger people love Joe Rogan so much. What are your thoughts?
And he's really built up his name. What's good about Joe Rogan is he dives into a lot of worlds. So like a lot of people remember him from Fear Factor. That show was a cultural hit. And then he's down with the UFC. So he has a lot of fans from there. He's well connected at the Comedy Store. So there's people who are
he was until he wasn't. You know, he had that thing with Carlos Mencia. They covered that nicely in that Showtime doc. Like it's now I don't know who was right or wrong in that situation. Obviously, it looks like Joe Rogan was, especially he's having his moment right now. And obviously, no one's really riding for Carlos Mencia for the most part. But what's odd to me, and he said it in that doc, he said, when I went to go sort of do what I did and question or go on stage with Carlos Mencia, and we had that moment, you know, the funny thing, Tone, is back then, the Comedy Store sort of ushered Joe Rogan out, like kind of, we got to choose one. And Carlos Mencia had the Comedy Central show. So there was a time that Carlos Mencia was the more popular, but yet the joke stiller of it all. And he was the one that the Comedy Store sort of sided with, not Joe Rogan. It's just so crazy how things change, huh?
He had a show. He when they put his name on the marquee, he drew in people. 200 people would show up just to see him.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan was still just a regular on the come up. He had the only
he had already done the sitcom, and he already did Fear Factor, but in the comedy world, he hadn't really hit. But you want to know something funny, Tone? I saw Joe Rogan in around, it had to be like the early 2000s because I was in my 20s. And I went to the Comedy Store and I saw Joe Rogan. And it was odd because at that time I hadn't known he was in comedy at all. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this guy from Fear Factor, we know what he brings to the table on Fear Factor, but I know he was funny. So he ripped the stage. So I know he's hilarious. So it's interesting to see him do so well. And I think that's a note for everybody who's coming up. Like, you just gotta weather the storms, and if you're meant to be on top, you're gonna be on top.
Sure.
Any other comedy things you want to talk about?
Yeah, you know, I try to do my best in my sphere, and I enjoy what I do, and being around the people that I'm around. I definitely tip my hat to you. I always tell you this, and I guess I want to say this on Wax Official. Like, you're a huge part of like the success that I've had. Like, you brought me into the the TV world. You got me a few gigs. And through that, I was able to get other gigs. I was able to connect with a lot of people. I met some really cool people. So you got me started a few years ago. I was just really glad to meet you because you were super knowledgeable. You still are, and you really know your shit, man. Like,
oh yeah, and we met at SiriusXM while both through the Covino and Rich radio program, which we both you interned there, and I had been introduced to them through Kevin and Maria Menounos. Kevin Undergaro. I can't take away his last name like that. And yeah, they introduced me to Covino and Rich, and you were there. And that was a good little meeting because you've got such drive. Honestly, I feel like you're going to do much better than me in this whole thing because you still like want it and you're still hungry. I'm a little bit like old and washed and a little like grumpy. So I don't know how things will go for me, but I try to do my thing and find the lanes that work for me. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to be jumping on tweeting or TikToking that much. Like, it just doesn't, feel good to me. Like it's a little boring actually. And I understand it's a business, but I thought to myself, I said, you know what I will do though, is I'll dive a lot of my stuff into different elements of my podcast and the two that I'm producing as well outside of my stuff. Like that felt better to me. And I think like if you're putting in that 180-hour work week or even if a 20-hour work week, as long as you're doing different things, you don't have to do what other people tell you to do, you know? So I just want to make that clear in the regards of like, oh, you're not on TikTok. Something's wrong with you. No, this is a tough journey. Oh, I do think I'm going to do a TikTok, although Tone, let me run it by you. This is what I think I'm gonna do my TikTok, because you always gotta have a theme, right? So my TikTok, I think I'm gonna do two different things. You know, it's been the battle of the belly lately. You know, with now that I'm got the 40-year-old metabolism, and I think I want to do but and still battle of the belly, 40-year-old metabolism, but I still eat pretty daggone healthy. You know what I mean? This is truth. And so I eat celery a lot, I eat smoothies a lot, and you know, I don't have carbs really at all anyways. Like I'm just a pretty good eater, but you know, whatever's going on with my body, metabolism or whatever, it's just I can't take the weight off. I mean, I can and I will, but it's just I'm talking about right now. So this is what I thought I would do. I would devote a whole TikTok to me eating celery and making my smoothies and throwing on some 90s like house music or R&B music in the background, and that literally is going to be my TikTok platform. Crunching on the celery and drinking my smoothies and just giving like a wink or two. Yeah, it's simple, but I like it.
You should do like ASMRs of you eating the celery.
Oh my gosh.
ASMR is trending. People love that stuff.
I hated the ASMR moment. I hate it as much as when people, what was the thing they used to do when they used to lay down? What was that called? Yeah, I didn't like the planking. I thought what was the song that they used to do where they were frozen? That was okay. That was pretty funny.
Oh, that was the Migos.
What's that Migos?
No, that was Ray Shermerd. Yeah, that was
I don't remember the name of the song, but that one was good. The Harlem Shake one was okay. I didn't like ASMR. I thought ASMR was so tacky. What do you think about? And it's over now. But what do you think about Bernie sitting everywhere? Do you like that one? They get played out so quickly. It's weird.
Can't go 5 minutes without seeing a meme. I love what they've done with it. For me, it hasn't died out yet.
Do you have a favorite? I have a favorite. Go tell me yours and I'll tell you mine.
It was one that I made because among my friends we were laughing hard at it. There's like this hard rap group out of Buffalo, New York called Griselda.
Oh yeah.
They're signed to Eminem, and there's a clip, a picture of them in Shade 45 getting interviewed. And in one of the rappers, Benny the Butcher's like looking over there like this. He's like very inquisitive look. And I got Bernie sitting in the middle.
Oh my gosh.
So everyone that is around me saw that and they were dying laughing. They're like, look at Benny looking at him. I'm like,
yeah.
You know Bernie be spitting though.
He's got that fire. That's funny. It is fun. You're right. I guess it's not played out, but it's on its way. I did like the Janet Jackson one.
That's a classic. I saw that one today.
That one worked for me because Janet is queen and, you know, Bernie is doing his thing. So that was very cool. All right. Well, that is it on comedy stuff. Anything else you want to mention? Oh, I wanted to ask you, what is it like working at Shade 45? You know, you mentioned Eminem. I feel like you're an Eminem fan. What is your overall thoughts on Eminem, his career longevity, et cetera, et cetera?
Man, I went in there thinking this guy's one of the greatest rappers to ever do it. And now that I'm working around people that know him and doing like literally the programming for his channel, it's like I just get it, man. Like this guy needs, you know, people are saying he lost it a touch. He hasn't lost it at all. He's still as sharp as ever.
All right, funny cat. His name is Tone Viera. He is the son of Meredith Viera, who is, you know, formerly of The View and the Today Show, and she hosts a lot of game shows. My gosh. You should be part of her family because she's always booked and busy. How about that?
I would love that. I'm about to just lie to people and say I am related to her.
Let me ask you, we're talking a lot about comedy, but just because you do broadcast as well, wrapping this up, Tone, who is like, when you see like game show hosts, who is enjoyable on television, or are you in that new culture of like, oh, nothing on television is good. It's all about online.
Listen, my initials are TV, Tone Viera. I love TV. Steve Harvey's the greatest, man. I watch his clips all the time. The show that he does and Family Feud, incredible. he's just so good at what he does.
He
Makes it
was
look
good at radio too. When he was in Los Angeles, he did the beat, and he was I think it was when they switched it to 100.3 the beat. And I remember he made this this thing where he was saying the reason it might have just been a marketing thing, to be honest with you, because he was selling a suit line or something like that. But he's like, I remember the times of doing stand-up comedy and being so dirt poor broke, and I always said that if I ever did get the opportunity to win and make a career out of this, I'm going to respectfully make sure that I'm dressed to the nines or whatever. So that's why he actually did dress so cool. And that's why that's part of his branding. I mean, Steve Harvey's branding is a big old laugh, those teeth, the stash, and the suits. Like that's the essence of him. Any other messages, Tone?
Man, if anybody out there is interested in following me, you guys can check me out on Instagram at tone.viera. The website is www.toneviera.com. I'm also on this new podcast where we interview hip-hop legends. It's called Infamous Hour. You guys could check it out. We air live on Facebook Live every Thursday, and we've recently talked to like some West Coast guys. We did like the Dog Pound, Corrupt, and Daz Dillinger.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, we were interviewing them. It was a fun interview, and yeah.
Corrupt's probably really funny. He used to be on that same radio station Steve Harvey was on in LA. He used to be on the beat for a little bit too. He was very good.
I bet he was a late night guy because he's kind of dirty.
I don't know if it was late night or whatever, but he was always high. So there you go.
Hell yeah.
Wrapping up, last question to you. Who is your celebrity crush? Who do you love?
Ronnie Jr., I'm going to give you the same answer I would have given you when I was like 12 years old. All right, let me see. Here we go. My crush was and always will be Tiffany Amber Thiessen.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Hasn't changed.
I couldn't believe she got an MTV show at this late in the game.
Hey, shout out to her. Deliciousness.
Yes. And you think she's delicious. So there you go. Thank you, Tone Viera. Keep up the good work. We'll see you.
Appreciate you, Ron. Peace out.